Well, anyway, thank you for the book. I honestly, I feel like it is masterfully written. It has that feel of like a trade book or an instructional kind of book when you pick it up and you thumb through it. But as you start to read it, it's much more than, okay, here are the 5 things to do in a meeting. It's really wonderful.
Thank
Honestly.
you.
And I don't blow smoke, so I'm not blowing smoke.
Thank you. That means a ton coming from you, Dan. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's promotions are so yesterday, redefining career development, help employees redefine career development and help employees thrive. I like the help employees thrive thing. That speaks to me. But I just what's so bad about promotions is kind of what I'm reading that. Doesn't everybody want to get promoted?
Yeah, and promotions aren't bad in and of themselves. The challenge that we've had is we've been defining careers and career development just so narrowly as promotions and positions and moves. And it's limited when you look at the workplace. It's a mathematical impossibility to give a new position to everybody who wants to grow. And so as long as we hold on to that as our default setting and expectations, we're going to continue to see the dissatisfaction and the disengagement and the attrition that organizations are trying to avoid. So promotions are one way that we can help people grow, but there are so many more possibilities at a manager's fingertips that we don't lean into. And so the book really is about where is our locus of control and where are the countless other ways that managers and employees can make the development happen.
So between you and I work with some people who they secretly tell me, I don't want a promotion, right? I don't want that next level. I don't want what comes with it. I want to advance, right? But I don't really want the promotion. How does that set with part of what's going on in your book?
It's absolutely right on. I mean, how many folks have been moved up the food chain into a leadership role that they never wanted, but it was the only way for them to be able to move forward, whatever that means. And so you've got people who love what they're doing. They're good at what they're doing. They want to keep getting better at what they're doing, but they want to do what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And growth and continuing to do what you're doing aren't mutually exclusive. So for a leader who's got, and too frequently, those employees, they've been sort of kind of, I don't know, labeled as not ambitious, or they've been moved into this other category. They don't get the attention they need. They still want to grow. And so what managers need to be able to do is figure out, what does growth look like to them? What's going to be most interesting to them? What's going to keep them moving forward, not into a different role, but forward into greater capacity and greater contribution that's going to make them happy right where they are. And it's a perfect win-win, because you have folks who are then more capable, more engaged, and the organization benefits in the process.
So you actually used a word for one of the first of 7 C words, right? Contribution. Thinking about, how do you help? All right, so I can't promote this employee. They are a high aspiration employee. Can't promote them. Maybe they don't even want all the headaches of the next position. You don't want to do the Peter Principle thing. So we want to help people thrive. And really, the book is so much about helping people thrive at work, it seems to me, right? So how do we help people thrive? And there are several, I'd love to talk about all of them, but you help people thrive by somehow enhancing their ability to contribute. Is that what that chapter is about?
Exactly, exactly. So contribution is one of the 8 dimensions of what I refer
Oh,
to
no.
as.
Did I said 7?
No, 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 you're not incorrect. No, you're
Oh,
absolutely
okay.
correct.
7 seed.
There are 7 alternatives to an 8th C, which is climb, that
I see.
corporate, ladder. So the promotions, the whole promotional piece.
And that's a C also.
And that's a C
How
also,
long have you been like so weird about
since
this?
I was a child. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I just love alliteration.
Yeah.
So the multidimensional career framework offers these 8 different dimensions. So it expands the definition of career development. Contribution is the first one that we talk about. And so as human beings, we have this need to make a difference, to contribute, to step up, to be of service, to live on purpose. And that need gets expressed outside of the workplace, but also obviously within the workplace. And good managers, effective managers, are able to tap that need for the purpose of engagement. And when you find a way to let people contribute, then they're feeling engaged. What the chapter in the book is about is a little bit more of a reciprocal approach. So yeah, let's help people step up and contribute more. But how can we do that in a way that ensures that they're growing, that they're developing, that there's something in it for them? They're getting something as they're giving back. And so it's a really conscious way of contributing, where managers and employees will sit down and determine, okay, contribution is really a priority right now. What does that look like? How would you like to express that? And what are you going to learn through stepping into that project, stepping into that void, taking on this department or a project team, whatever it might be. So what do you want to learn? What skills do you want to have developed? How do you want to build your network? What does your confidence need to look like? What do you want to get out of it from a growth standpoint, so that it's a very deliberate development conversation?
Well,
And
you jumped right in there and started saying, well, you ask a question. I hope we don't miss this, because I think sometimes when the boss comes and says, let's talk about your contribution, he's going to tell you what to do. And I don't really see that in or hear that in what you're saying.
no. There are times when that's appropriate. I mean, that's what delegation is about, and that's how a lot of work gets done within an organization. So nothing wrong with that. But let's not confuse that with development. A lot of times managers do. What is that, expression that we use? I have a development opportunity for you,
Yes, yeah.
which is more work masquerading as something that's going to help you grow. So what we're talking about is just being really transparent and authentic about this. This is an opportunity for you to do something important for the organization. And what can the organization do for you in return in terms of your growth? And when we start doing that, then we're labeling growth. We're putting a flag on it. We're calling it what it is and reminding people that that's what this is. And we're keeping the growth part of it, the development part of it, in the foreground, along with the work part of it. So frequently the development part kind of gets lost in the shuffle, and it just becomes more drudgery and more work. And so by being really intentional about this, we're able to keep those two things moving forward. And so, so folks exit the experience of contribution having given, but having gotten something in terms of skills and growth.
How do you deal with the problem of jealousy on the team when you're working with someone, they're making new contribution, and maybe other people on the team might feel jealous because maybe they didn't get the same opportunity, or they're not contributing the same?
That's a great question, because leaders really do need to, if they're going to embrace this kind of an approach, they need to be ready to run interference for those who may be stepping up and stepping into a spotlight that's a little brighter than what's being, shown on other folks. I guess the other side of it, though, is in an ideal world, a manager wouldn't encounter that kind of jealousy, because he or she would be having those kinds of conversations with every employee. They'd be engaging with each employee to figure out what's most important to you right now? How do you want to grow? What does, whether it's contribution or any other of the dimensions, competence or confidence or connection, whatever it might be, what does that look like? How do we want to bring expression to it so that everyone on the team has their own unique growth plan, development plan in place? I've started writing a little bit about bespoke development, bespoke being that custom just for me sort of approach. And when a leader approaches development in a bespoke fashion, then everyone will be getting their due, and it might just be looking different among them.
Yes. So I hear you saying that the employee should and does have a huge role in this process of thriving at work. It's not just the manager who is responsible for it, but the employees are responsible for it as well. And I feel like this. So if someone were to come and say, well, how come Billy Bob, that has all these opportunities? I think a manager might have a tendency to give an explanation. Mm-hmm. Instead, how would you like to contribute? Becomes like, well, it seems like you have aspiration. Now, I think proactively they should have had the conversation all along, but it still happens. And taking people seriously and asking, well, how would you like to contribute? Let's sit down and have this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And if a leader isn't open to that, then that leader needs to kind of look inward and see what's happening with them. But everybody needs that opportunity to grow. And it's, the business case is there. It's in a leader's best interest to ensure that everyone's got that opportunity, not just, from a contribution standpoint, not just because they'll be able to do more for the organization, but also for that retention piece, which is so vital today.
I wanted to ask you what employers are really what competencies employees are, that's the next C in your framework. What competencies are employers looking for?
Well, it's all over the board, right? It depends upon the nature of the work and the industry and the level and that sort of thing. But some of the universals right now that seem to be most in demand really are the intangibles, the things like agility and ability to manage change and flexibility and resilience. You've seen the research, 85% of the jobs we'll be doing in the year 2030 haven't been invented yet, according to the Institute for the Future of Work. And so, when you look at what do we need to do to future-proof our careers or organizations, the hard skills, those are going to be in flux, but those things like the ability to learn day in and day out, and to zig and zag as the road changes, and to get along with and collaborate and be able to produce results with others. Those seem like the center line that a lot of organizations are gravitating toward.
A collaboration is one, I think, isn't it? It's connection, I guess, is the way you would put this. Mm-hmm. This is a little, I don't recall seeing this in the book, but I don't know if you have thoughts about, the virtual team and connection or not. Do you have thoughts about creating connection and the virtual team?
So many thoughts, Dan. So many thoughts. Oh gosh, we could talk all afternoon about that. Yeah, the last couple of years have really given us a rich opportunity to explore what connection means and what it looks like. Not just in the workplace. I think about how families have figured out how to use technology in creative ways to continue those heart and soul connections beyond what we would even expect in the workplace. In the book, the focus of connection really is about how we can use connection as a developmental vehicle. Because, there's that expression, it's not what you know, it's who you know, which is a bit overstated, but we learn an awful lot with and through others. And so how can we engage in the coaching and the mentorship and the co-creation and the collaborative projects that allow people to build their networks, to build a sense of community, to get the visibility that that's part of development. And so obviously the fact that we aren't all co-located creates a bit of a barrier. I've been doing a lot of work with leaders recently around proximity bias, because that's the latest thing that we have to grapple with is when we're not all together, what does that do to our relationships? There's a suggestion that promotions are less likely for those who are not co-located with leaders and that sort of thing. What I'm really coming down to around connection in a virtual world is the incredible importance of meetings. And love them or hate them, they are the primary vehicle for visibility and connection. And
what's your best tip on how to do a meeting online that also helps facilitate connection?
I think there are two things. Maybe they're the same, actually. I think it boils down to preparation. What creates connection is an agenda that's designed to create connection. So frequently these meetings are just kind of show up and throw up your reports and you go around the horn, and it could just as easily have been an email exchange or a Slack thread or whatever it might be. There's kind of this sense that we ought to have a meeting, and so we put that time on the agenda. Meetings where a manager is, the intent purpose is for people to connect, feel different. That's where conversations are happening. That's where ideas are being exchanged. That's where connection happens. And so from a leader's perspective, preparing with the intention of you slipping in the background, maybe you're doing 20% of the talking, but everyone else is engaged in organic conversation. That, to me, that's a game changer. What that also demands, though, is preparation on the part of the participants.
Yeah.
They need to be ready to bring 100% attention, not the multitasking. I'm really going to text over here, even if I'm pretending like I'm looking at my daughter has been in virtual. Yeah. My daughter has been in virtual classrooms enough where I've seen her go like this and have full conversations with, oh gosh, I've just got her in trouble probably. We'll edit that out. She won't know. So anyway, the employees have to show up ready to be 100% present, having done the preparation and their homework, so that they really are prepared to have a conversation, to offer their ideas, to give meaningful feedback, and to also, reciprocate and listen.
Well, and this is where the preparation, I feel like, really does come in. If you want your people to participate in a meeting, send the agenda, or even say, Mary, would you be prepared to kick off the conversation on point 3? Do a little research and get ready to, we walk in and we want substantive participation, and you're asking introverts to speak extemporaneously.
Right off the top of their head. Yeah.
Well, no, that's like pulling teeth. They don't want to do that.
Yep.
So.
I have started adding to each agenda item, I've started adding a question that will be the focus of that conversation to help people start to prepare, to get their mind set in the right direction.
Wow. So how do again, you have these ways to help employees thrive, right? Work on contribution, work on competence, work on connection. I'm sorry that I'm going to go out of order here. I want to go back to competence for just a minute and invite you to talk a little bit about how managers can help enhance the competence of the people on the team.
Yeah. And no worries going out of order because, for each of us, I mean, the order really depends upon each individual's interest. The order of the book relates to our research and what we found was most interesting to people. But competence was number two, and it's critical. From a leadership standpoint, what I found is that historically, leaders have relied upon the really terrific programming that's offered within their organizations. So when they think about competence and skills and learning, they default to the good work of their learning and development and training and HR departments. And bless those folks for putting such rich resources, making them available within the organization. And yet those resources, as great as they are just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what's possible and how people learn. And so in the book, we've got a matrix where we lay out a variety of
I wondered if you might not go there, right? I love this.
Let's just all turn to page, what is it?
37, actually.
37.
But I wondered, because I was wanted to tell you how much I enjoyed that little matrix, the 2x2 or the 4x or whatever you want to call it.
Oh, who doesn't love
Fantastic.
a good 2x2 matrix, right?
Yes.
But yeah, so what I tried to do there was to empower managers and leaders with all of the things that are in their control. And I guess, you know what, Dan, now that I think about it, that's really the theme of the book, is when we think about career development, we so frequently think, oh, there's so much that's out of my control. And yeah, promotions are out of your control, and whether a class is scheduled is out of your control. But the vast majority of what's possible is well within a manager's control. And so when it comes to competence, yeah, maybe that course isn't available, or maybe that employee isn't even eligible to go to that course. It's for, level 17 and up, and you've got a 16 on your hands. But so much learning happens organically within the workflow. So much is available if we're strategic about the way we delegate our work, the way we support people through new challenges, the way we offer them visibility in meetings or opportunities like that. So much is available in terms of how we can help individuals help others to learn. So frequently, we think about career development as this exclusive relationship between the manager and the employee, and it doesn't have to be. When we open it up, we realize that you've got a whole team there who may know more about that individual employee than you do, whose boots on the ground day in and day out, going to hold them accountable to what they say they want to do and how they want to grow. And so when we start to open it up like that, even when you talk about competence, what we're talking about is having, rather than one teacher, we've got a whole classroom of teachers there helping each other to develop and grow in ways that are meaningful to them.
I want to think about some of these other attributes, skills, however you want to name them, that are in here and helping employees thrive. Confidence, challenge, contentment, and choice are what I put on my list. I'm not saying that off the top of my head. I would not have remembered. But I think what I'd like to do, Julie, is just get your thoughts about how a manager can help develop, for example, confidence in a person, or can help, how can a manager successfully engage in challenge? What does challenge look like in a framework that you're trying to present? So let's go back to confidence. How do managers develop? What is important about confidence? First question, what is important about confidence?
Well, and even if you don't mind, before I answer that, confidence is not a dimension that normally falls into a career development framework. So it's a little bit of a different animal. And yet what's important about it is if someone doesn't have it, it's debilitating.
Yes.
And we've all had that experience. And if you haven't had that experience yet, you'll likely have it at some point. I know the times in my life when my confidence has dipped. It has implications for my performance. It has implications for my relationships. It has implications for my happiness outside of work. It's big. And when I'm not confident, when I don't have that level of confidence that I need, I'm not going to put myself out there to risk. I'm not going to be curious enough to learn. And so there's really something in it for managers and employees alike to recognize confidence is my priority opportunity right now and to lean into that. And so the way the book is structured, as you know, each of the chapters digs into one of these, what we refer to as development dimensions, and gets into, all right, so how do we do that? So for instance, in the case of confidence, you can certainly build confidence by pushing someone beyond their comfort zone and testing that and letting them see, okay, yeah, that's I'm capable of that. But another one is to really help people define where the boundaries of their capability live, which sounds sort of like a downer, like, okay, well, I can't go beyond this line here. And yet when I know that that's where my ability to predictably deliver starts to get in question, then I can stay here in this space where I'm assured of success. I'm going to repeat my success time and again. I can stay here for now to build that confidence, to know that, I got this. And then at another time in my career, maybe 3 months down the line, once I really feel insecure here, then maybe I'm going to be ready to push the boundaries a little bit and maybe experiment and fail or whatever it might be. And so
I feel like safety is a big part of this. I feel like, an employee has to be at the place where, all right, if it doesn't really go as we hoped, what's going to happen to me?
That whole psychological safety thing, right? And I would say, Dan, that probably applies to all of the dimensions in the book and probably applies to all learning in life, right? I mean, depending upon how safe I feel, depending upon the extent to which I feel like you as a manager have my back, you're going to be my safety net, it's going to be okay, then I can stretch a little bit further. I can go beyond what I'm really confident being able to deliver. If, on the other hand, the stakes are particularly high, or I've got a manager who's not particularly supportive, or any number of other things, it might be more appropriate to stay in that safety zone. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you can really hone what's known. When you're doing that, you can get that into your bones, so you're not even thinking about it. And you've got such a deep core competency that then becomes the basis for others to build upon.
So all managers want to challenge their people because they want to get more out of them. All right. So let's talk about challenging people. It's one on your list, and I know everybody's interested in challenging, and I think it's hard to imagine a manager who is going around challenging people who also is thinking about how to help employees thrive. Because it's like, I just want to kick your butt and get you busy, do more,
Yeah.
How do we challenge people in such a way that it really helps them thrive?
So I guess what I would say is the managers I'm working with right now are really sensitized to the needs of their workforce. The last 2 years have caused managers to grow tremendously as they've learned more about their people and how to support and motivate them. The stories of what managers have done during this pandemic just really inspire me. And so some are just wanting to throw more work, but others are really aware that throwing more work may be necessary, for the organization, but how they do it is what's going to be critical in terms of the employee's ability to thrive, going back to the theme that you've established here. And so from a manager, from a leader standpoint, it really boils down to both the what and the how. So when we start thinking about challenging people, if we're just saying, amp it up, you've got to do 20% more, that might be hard to extract learning from. But when the challenge is linked to something of interest to them, when we understand the employee well enough to understand how they want to grow, what's most interesting to them, the good news is that there's so much work floating around out there that a savvy manager is going to be able to figure out, okay, this is more work that gets done, that needs to get done, but it totally matches what Dan has told me he's wanting to do. So yeah, we're going to stretch him. He's going to work a little harder. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for him. And yet it's aligned with his growth goals. And I'm going to be here to help make sure that he's supported. And at that point, you've got that win-win. Dan's developing, the work is getting done. And I guess the third win is the manager is deeply engaged in that relationship with and the support of the employee as well.
Yeah. If you don't know what the people on your team want to accomplish or what their aspirations are, I mean, you're just pushy. But we need to know what people are, really reaching for themselves, because, and if it's so far out of alignment with the organization, they need to go to a different organization anyway, right?
That's a really good point.
Just manage them out for their benefit and the organization. It's not cruel. Yeah. And then, help them reach for the things that they want to reach for.
Exactly. And that's kind of the challenge too, Dan, is for a lot of managers, when it comes to thinking about development, we've only thought about the roles, the positions, the promotions. So a lot of leaders are struggling with, how do I have a different kind of conversation? And that was why in the book, you probably saw there's a self-assessment that they can use with employees that will help the employee identify which of these dimensions are most interesting to me. And we have an online version of it as well at the website. But it's been fascinating to me to watch how that plays out, because just having employees go through this assessment process, just having them start to think about these different dimensions, it's a little bit mind-blowing for them as well, as it just, sort of crushes the boundaries and that old definition and starts to introduce all these new possibilities. And so the self-assessment is also a tool for getting to know the individual and where their interests lie. And it can be a conversation accelerator, because you're just that much further down the pike by the time you sit down and start talking about it.
Well, the last two, contentment is rather interesting to me, and I'm fascinated. You got challenge, which feels like discontent, and then you have contentment. What do you mean by contentment? How does this help us thrive, and how do managers actually can help employees find that?
So let's just go back to challenge for a minute. Let's call that constructive discontent.
Oh, okay.
Because, when you're putting yourself in an uncomfortable position for the right reason, that's a good thing. That's healthy stretch. When it's destructive, then that's a whole other thing. But you're right. Contentment is a little bit of the other side of the coin. Over the last 2 years, we've done, as a society, we've done a lot of soul searching. There have been a lot of COVID epiphanies. People have thought long and hard about the relationship with work and what they want that relationship to be. And I think contentment fits in many ways in that way. When you think about how long people are going to be working, somebody coming into the workforce today, they've got 40, 50, maybe more years to work. We can't treat that as a sprint. You can't be running fast, climbing the corporate ladder for 4 or 5 decades. There are times in all of our careers where the best step forward is to take a step back and really look at, what do I need to do to invite greater ease, and joy and balance and meaning into life. And I know that sounds so zen and airy-fairy and hippy-dippy, but there are times that we need to, as individuals, go there if we're going to be able to sustain ourselves over the long haul. And I'm not talking about sitting back and putting your feet up and eating bonbons for a chunk of time.
Yeah.
But there are times, and maybe it's following one of those constructively uncomfortable challenges where you realize that replenishment, refreshment is what's required. And so maybe you are taking the foot off the pedal a little bit. Maybe there is a shift in responsibilities. Maybe you're leaning into something that that fuels your soul a little bit more. And brings you back to whole to be able to continue to give over the long haul.
So the last one is choice. This fits into decision making. And I think every manager wants their team members to be making choices, making decisions. They don't want to make decisions, all the decisions for you. If they do, they're knuckleheads. You know, they want people to make decisions and choices and all of that. So I think that's what that's about, if my memory is right.
Yeah, I mean, you clearly studied this book. Thank you. Yeah, decision making is a big part of it. And there's tremendous learning in the decision making. So again, that's where decision making and autonomy, those can be great engagement strategies. But what we're talking about here is how can you use that for learning? So when you invite people to take on bigger, more complex, more high stakes sorts of decisions, there's a lot that goes into that. They've got to be able to look at the big picture, understand implications. Maybe there's more collaboration involved. And certainly then living with the consequences of those decisions comes with an awful lot of lessons as well. So yeah, that's a big piece of what choice is all about, but also the whole autonomy, flexibility, volition, such a big issue right now. People wanting more say over the where, the when, the how they do their work, and the extent to which organizations can offer that, offers the satisfaction people are looking for, but also development.
Well, the book is promotions are so yesterday, and
too, as long as we're doing this.
Yes, there it is. So, you know, I think it's a timely book, and well written, and enjoyable to read, and practical, which you know, is very dear to my heart. So when you get to all of the stuff you can work on and fill out and check box and all of that, that's all great stuff for me. I think I can't think of a leader or manager that I know that couldn't get something great out of your book. So I'm so thankful for it.
Oh, thank you, Dan. I really appreciate that.